right. So I'm sharing, but what do y'all see a full screen or do you see? I don't think you
Yeah, we
see a
see full
video
screen.
screen. You do?
Yeah. No, go ahead
Um,
and share it again. We could see it.
okay.
There you
Okay.
go.
Is this it right here?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right. Very good. So you should see the lesson one business environment. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yep.
All
That's
right.
correct.
Perfect. All right, perfect. Well, fantastic. Okay, so this lesson addresses the concepts and business areas that you should understand before you start a project. So, and it supports learning related to the business environment domain of the exam content outline or the ECO. You're going to hear us use that term often, and the business acumen side of the PMI talent triangle. You may recall from the orientation session that the exam will cover three areas: people, process, and business environment. Of the 180 questions that are on the exam, approximately 8% of those questions, or 14, will be about the business environment. We also cover foundational project management concepts in this class, or in this particular lesson. Central to this lesson is determining the purpose and expectation for the project, as well as the parameters and expectations of the project within the business. The business documents which were used to approve the project will provide most of your initial information needed. And if these aren't available, the project manager will need to quickly determine the purpose and expectation for the project. Having a sharp, strategic business acumen and a good foundation in modern project practices will enable the project manager to do this. Okay. So in this session, we're going to be covering two topics: foundation and strategic alignment. So let's go ahead and move forward. Okay. Here we see listed the overall objectives for Lesson 1. When you have completed Lesson 1 in its entirety, you should be able to, 1, or A, define the project, define what a project is or what it means, and describe how it relates to the larger discussion of project management. In Topic A, we'll be discussing the different types of organizational structures and how they relate to the management of a project. We'll discuss the principles of project management, and we're going to also discuss the principles of Agile and how they relate to the management of the project. You'll also be able to describe strategic alignment and its elements, specifically the impact of business factors on strategic alignment and how projects align with the business strategy. You'll be able to identify the types of business value, and additionally, you'll be able to describe change management theory and how it relates to organizational change. The last two topics that will be in the lesson, and I won't be covering these last four, the two I just mentioned in this one, but in the last two topics on Wednesday, you'll also be able to articulate the role of project governance, and you're going to also be able to explain project management compliance and its importance. As noted in the previous slide, after completing this topic, you're going to be able to define project and describe how it relates to the larger discussion of project management. You will know the different types of organizational structures and how they relate to the management of a project. And you're going to also understand the principles of project management and Agile, as well as how they relate to the management of the project. As a side note, this section covers the foundational concepts of project management, updated to include content from the 2022 publication of the Project Management Book of Knowledge, or the PMBOK Guide, 7th edition. PMP certification candidates should not expect to be tested directly on some of these concepts from the 7th edition, but you should be aware that the exam content is built with an understanding of these concepts. Okay, so this is foundational information that they really expect you to know. You probably won't, again, probably because it's only 8% of the exam is because PMI expects that you already are very familiar with a lot of these concepts. Okay. So what is a project? Key characteristics of a project are that it creates a unique product, service, or result. In essence, it's a one and done. Therefore, it's time limited. It has a definitive start and a definitive end. It drives or facilitates a change. Lastly, a project creates value for a business or organization or even an individual. For example, I may want to renovate my kitchen. I may choose to do the work myself or outsource it to a company to do it for me. This project will result in a fully renovated kitchen that has a time frame as defined by myself and the company doing the work. It certainly will involve a change as I expect to have an improved kitchen that will not only give me enjoyment but improve the value of my home. Projects drive and adapt to change as well as create business value. Successful project management includes understanding project management concepts and being able to adapt and apply them to the individual project. Key drivers impacting success include, but are not necessarily limited to, the maturity of the organization, the effectiveness of the project manager, the availability of funding and resources, as many of us know, the skill level of the various team members, how effective communication is within the team and with key stakeholders, and how well the core problem and related needs are understood. In 1969, when the Project Management Institute was founded, the concept of project management focused on the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to project activities to meet the project requirements. In 2022, with the publication of the PMBOK Guide, 7th edition, project management evolved in the context of a systems view of value delivery, which focuses on the value chain that links project, program, and portfolio outputs and other business capabilities to advancing organizational strategy, value, and business objectives. Based on your experience and knowledge, can you describe in your own words how project management has changed over this time frame? What are some new things that you've seen in project management? Feel free to come off mute.
Hey, this is Alonzo. I
Anybody have
think
any?
personally, what I've seen is just the evolution of the methodologies over time. So founding of Agile and different types of Agile like Scrum and Kanban and all those different
Mm-hmm.
theories were founded out of the original form of project management.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Alonzo. Thank you. Yes, you're exactly right. We've seen then a number of methods come about, an iterative work, incremental development. Absolutely. That's perfect. Thank you. Right. And I'm sure these won't be the last of the changes either, right? So project management professionals are knowledgeable and competent in predictive, adaptive, and hybrid development life cycles. On this slide, we see an overview of each life cycle with typical project roles and the value delivery proposition. A key characteristic of predictive life cycles is that they are heavy on planning. We can expect a linear approach, often with clearly defined phases, where one phase begins only when the previous phase has been completed. Key roles include the project sponsor, who authorizes the project, and the team lead, who is considered the project manager. In predictive life cycles, deliverables are transitioned to the customer, typically at completion. Value can also be realized in both the short term and the long term. In fact, when I started with the company in 2000, I was a quality control manager or quality assurance manager. We have software releases for our billing platform at the time. And basically, you had to, if you wanted to get into the release, you had to have all your requirements, buttoned up and submitted by a certain time frame, or it didn't make it into the release unless it came through in a scope change. And what's interesting, after about 4 years in that role, we went from having about 15 scope changes submitted and approved to about 120 scope changes on average being approved for each release. So Agile was probably something that we were going to have to start foraying into, and we should have probably done it a lot earlier. But at that point, it really was, if at best, it was in its infancy, if not born yet. So I'm most familiar, very, very familiar with these predictive life cycles. Where predictive life cycles have a plan-based approach, adaptive life cycles have a change-based approach. We expect change throughout the project, and as such, we need to leverage agile principles that leverage incremental or iterative development. The adaptive approach has a time-boxed cadence referred to as iterations or sprints, or sometimes you might hear it referred to as continuous flow. Key roles include the product owner who controls the value proposition, the project team who delivers the work, and other process roles such as the team lead, scrum master, agile coach, and facilitator. Value is delivered in iterations or incrementally to the customer during the life cycle of the project. Regular customer feedback enables the continuous development of value towards that final product. In hybrid life cycles, any combination of predictive and adaptive approaches, roles, and value delivery can be seen. You're going to learn additional details about life cycles in the project governance topic later in this lesson and in lesson 2 with the determine project approach topic. So stay tuned. Here we discuss the concept of the Project Management Office, or PMO. Here's that little icon right there. Oops, I clicked too fast. There's that little icon. Well, Well, even clicking on my little dictionary tool, it's not popping open for some reason. That's curious. Well, folks, I remind you that the document that I posted on the wiki is there. Please open it up. I'm not sure why the little dictionary tool is not working. It typically does. So again, here we're going to discuss the concept of the Project Management Office. A Project Management Office, or PMO, is a management structure that standardizes the project-related governance processes and facilitates the sharing of resources, methodologies, tools, and techniques. PMOs are more common in larger organizations because of the number of projects that can be in process at the same time. There are several types of PMO structures that you want to be aware of, each varying in the degree of control and influence that they have on projects within the organization. So you have your supportive PMOs. These PMOs provide a consultative role to projects by supplying templates, best practices, training, access to information, and lessons learned from other projects. They may also coach the people who run the PMO. They may also coach, mentor, train, and guide project managers. Controlling PMOs provide support and require compliance through various means. Compliance may involve adopting project management frameworks or methodologies, using specific templates, forms, and tools, or conforming to governance, often through the use of project audits. And then you have directive PMOs, and these directive PMOs take actually control of the projects by directly managing the projects or the shared resources, including project managers. A relatively small number of PMOs really fall into this category. Agile Centers of Excellence, or ACOE, or Value Delivery Offices, VDO, are emerging within organizations today, adopting more decentralized structures where teams need to respond quickly to changing customer needs. Their role is different, taking on coaching and mentoring efforts rather than a managerial one. In fact, in our organization at AT&T, or our company, we do have an Agile Center of Excellence. If you're not familiar with them, I can try to find the link for you, but let me know if you would like me to do that. But we have an Agile COE whose role is to educate the broader organization about Agile. So in essence, PMOs are simply homes for project management inside an organization. Project managers should be familiar with each type and how they influence project and program management practices in the firm. So let's discuss the concept of organizational project management, or OPM. So OPM is a framework for executing strategy that integrates project, program, portfolio, and operations management, enabling organizations to achieve their strategic goals. OPM includes decisions for investment and approval of efforts at the portfolio level. The portfolio can include, and does often include, programs, projects, and operations. Programs include components which can be either projects or operations. And within programs or portfolios, which are part of the internal business environment and the external business environment, projects are spun up or created. Each of those spaces seen here are a system. They influence the project and the project influences them. Any changes in one system will likely reverberate and cause changes in the others. So taking a step back and thinking about AT&T, we see this concept of OPM at work in how AT&T considers investments. We look at the external environment, for example, the economy, supply chain, the state of competition, and the internal environment, for example, our financial situation, our capabilities. And we determine at a portfolio, for example, business or mass markets, we determine at that portfolio level what we believe we should be doing to improve AT&T's results. And from there, we consider which system of value delivery is the best approach, and we then spin up the appropriate programs and projects to accomplish our objectives. So let's take a moment now to understand how project management lines up with program and portfolio management within an organizational project management framework. Portfolio management is aligned with business strategies and can include a collection of projects, programs, subsidiary portfolios, and operations managed in a group to achieve the strategic objectives. Program management controls components and interdependencies to realize benefits. Program management takes a group of related projects, subsidiary programs, and program activities and manages them in a coordinated manner to obtain benefits not available from managing them individually. Project management enables the achievement of the organization goals and objectives. Project management is part of a broader program, portfolio, or both. One can think of projects as occurring at the tactical level. It's the how do we get this done, whereas portfolio and program management focuses on what do we need to accomplish. What is AT&T's business strategy? Does anybody know? Somebody's got to know. What is AT&T's business strategy?
We have project program managers, a mix.
Okay.
We do portfolio management too.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you, and we'll go look at that. Let's just do it now. I think I've already got it planned in my presentation here to go there, but I think it's a good idea to go there now. I'm going to escape, and let me pull up the AT&T website, and then I'll ask you a little bit more about it. So I'm going to go to the home page. I'm going to go to Key Company Info and Company Priorities. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. So what do you think our strategy is now? According to this page, what is AT&T strategy?
I know convergence is a big deal now as far as doing wireless and wireline together.
Which convergence is a way to get there, right? Pulling our wireline and our wireless services together. But our strategy, the way we're going to get where we want to be, is to be the best connectivity provider through 5G and fiber, right? We're going to talk a little bit more about this. I think it's going to be very demonstrable to you as we continue talking about the business environment. Okay. All right. Stay tuned. We're going to come back there. Go back and share again. Oops. Well, had to get back there somehow. Multi-screening. There we go. All right. So organizational structures. So an organizational structure determines how the various groups and individuals within the organization interrelate. It also affects how much authority the project manager has, as well as the availability of resources and how projects are performed. The structural model used by an organization will have a huge impact on how project managers interact with team members and stakeholders. In many cases, a project manager will interact with people at various levels in an organization. For example, middle management, operations, strategic functions, and senior management. Knowing which individuals in the organization are decision makers or influencers and working well with them increases the probability of project success. Organizations will typically be configured in one of four main structural implementations. In a functional structure, each department is responsible for carrying out a specific similar set of activities. Several people perform each type of activity. Reporting is hierarchical, with individuals reporting to a single manager. The project manager's authority is low relative to the functional manager's authority. And in a matrix structure, the team members may be added from other functional areas. The team members report to multiple managers, the functional manager, the resource manager, and possibly to the project manager. And the structure may be characterized as weak, balanced, or strong depending on the relative authority of the project manager to the functional manager. In a project-oriented structure, the project manager and a core project team operate as a separate organizational unit within the parent organization. Core team members are responsible for the work of extended team members in their functional area. Team members are often co-located. And the project manager reports to a program manager and has a significant amount of authority and independence. And then lastly, in a composite structure, an organization may involve all these structures at various levels. Many modern organizations will have characteristics of functional, matrix, and project-oriented structures. And I think probably at AT&T we probably do see that given the size of our company. As mentioned in the previous slide, organizational structure affects how much authority the project manager and the team has. Relative authority refers to the project manager's authority relative to the functional manager's authority over the project and the project team. In a purely functional organizational structure, for example, the project manager's authority is low relative to that of the functional manager. Conversely, in the project-oriented organizational structure, the opposite is true. So this information is going to be important. I can promise you, you will see something like this on the test. It's very important for you to understand the level of authority that the project manager has in regard to the functional manager, and understanding, the strength of that particular organizational type, whether functional, matrix, or project-oriented. So become very familiar with this slide and the prior slide as well. Thinking about a current project, can you identify the organizational structure type and describe how it affects or has affected the project that you might be thinking about in the following ways? How the organizational groups and the individuals interrelate, the project manager's authority, access to resources, right, availability of resources, and then how the project is conducted. Can you think of a current or a recent project, whether you've worked on it or not? Can you identify the organizational structure type based off what we just talked about? And I'll flip back there for a moment. Or Yeah, right here. So functional, matrix, or project oriented. Just thinking about any projects you've worked on. Have they been more functional, more project oriented?
I would say more project oriented.
Okay. So the project, project oriented, the project manager had considerable power, maybe.
Yes.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay.
And of course, full-time project manager with responsibilities with team members that report directly to the project manager, um and the project manager was able to had control over the team members.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Anybody else?
Had
This
a
is
a
Sherry.
rec- oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I had a recent project that's still kind of going on where it was more of a matrix organizational structure where I had a large portion of the team was working functionally where they would hardly report to me or even give me the time of day if I asked them a question. And then I had some teams on reporting to the project that were very much in a project oriented space where they came to me for everything as a project manager. So definitely a matrixy type structure there.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and one of those downsides is that conflicted loyalty, right? I mean, I've had the same thing where I've running a project or whatever, but I don't own the resources, so if there's something that becomes a priority more for that manager, that functional manager, than it does for me, I kind of get kicked to the back, right? Hmm. And did somebody else have a project as well?
Yeah, and I can say from a project like a product execution standpoint, that we're sometimes pieces in that project. And the way that ours is run is typically a mix between functional and matrix. Um,
Mhm.
we work on multiple projects. We report to our immediate manager, but we do, often support certain certain people in the
Mhm.
organization when it comes to their project portfolio. Um,
Mhm.
so although we do report to our functional manager, we also do support, like I said, the larger group in certain
Yeah,
scenarios. So it's kind of I
exactly.
guess you would say like a mix between functional and matrix.
Right. Right. Very good. Very good. Yeah, definitely say at AT&T we probably have a mix of different types of projects going on all the time, right? Outstanding. Right. So in the standard for project management, or it's also called a Guide to the Project Management Body of Knowledge, or the PMBOK, 7th edition, the Project Management Institute has articulated 12 principles listed that you see listed here to provide broad parameters within which project teams can operate. Because every project team operates in a unique way, alignment with principles of project management offers teams a chance to keep their practices aligned with good practices. As project management practitioners, we should model these principles with every project that we lead. Certainly, we should be a diligent, respectful, and caring steward, recognize, evaluate, and respond to system interactions, navigate complexity, right? Help our partners, our those that our teams and so forth, to help them to navigate the complexity of our organization. Create a collaborative project team environment. Demonstrate leadership behaviors, right? Optimize risk responses, which you're going to learn a lot about risk in one of our later lessons. Effectively engage with our stakeholders. Um, Tailor, and we're going to hear more about tailoring here in a few minutes, tailoring based on context. Embrace adaptability and resiliency. Focus on value, always focusing on delivering value. Building quality into our processes and our deliverables. and then enable change to achieve the envisioned future state. So these are principles that all project practitioners should embrace and model as they engage in project management. A project performance domain is a group of related activities that are critical for the effective delivery of project outcomes. Collectively, the performance domains represent a project management system of interactive, interrelated, and interdependent management capabilities that work in unison to achieve the desired project outcomes. As the performance domains interact and react to each other, of course, change will happen. Each domain addresses activities and functions specific to the domain, resulting in specific desired outcomes. So here is a synopsis of desired outcomes of working in each of the 8 project performance domains. So I'm just going to read through a couple of them. I could cover each and every one of these. Well, I tell you what, it's kind of dry, but I think it's worth hearing. So let me kind of hit all of them, kind of going with stakeholders, right? So with stakeholders, the project manager wants to achieve a productive working relationship in which the stakeholders derive benefits and any negative impacts are avoided. And they want to get stakeholder agreement on the project objectives, right? With the team, the project manager wants to drive for shared ownership, high performance, and help develop the team to develop and execute good leadership and interpersonal skills. Okay? When it comes to development approach and life cycle, the project manager ensures that the approaches used are consistent with deliverables, that the life cycle phases deliver value for business and stakeholders from the beginning to the end of the project, and that the life cycle phases facilitate a delivery cadence and development approach required to produce the project deliverables. In the planning domain, the project manager calls on our principals and to make sure that project progress is organized, coordinated, and deliberate. They use these principles to deliver a holistic approach to delivering project outcomes. They want to make sure that the evolving information, right, is elaborated to produce the project's deliverables and outcomes, and that the planning time is appropriate for context. Additionally, planning information can manage stakeholder expectations, and they also use these principles to plan, to make sure that the plans can be adapted in response to change, right? In project work, the principles help to drive efficient and effective performance and ensures processes are appropriate for project and context. They help in the development of appropriate communication with stakeholders, as well as ensure efficient management of physical resources. The principles also ensure effective management of procurements is executed as well. We're going to talk about contracts and procurements later on in this course as well. And the principles also help to ensure that that team capability is improved from continuous learning and process improvement efforts. In the delivery domain, the principles influence how the project contributes to business objectives and advancement of strategy, and that the project realizes the outcomes they were intended to deliver. The principles also help to ensure that execution of the principles also ensures that the project benefits are realized in the intended time frame. Moreover, the principles help the project team to understand requirements clearly and that the stakeholders accept and are satisfied with the project deliverables. Moving on to measurement. So from a measurement perspective, executing on those principles ensures a reliable understanding of project status and that there is actionable data to facilitate decision making. They also help to drive timely and appropriate actions to keep project performance on track and ultimately help to achieve the goals and create business value through informed and timely decisions based on reliable forecasts and evaluations. Lastly, in regard to uncertainty, the principles help to produce awareness of project environment, including PESTLE, or PESTLE. That's an acronym you're going to learn more about here shortly. It also influences the team to proactively explore and respond to uncertainty. The principles bring awareness of the interdependence of project variables, and they improve the organization's capacity to anticipate threats and opportunities and understand the consequences of issues. With consistent focus on putting the project management principles in place, the organization can expect project delivery with little or no negative impact from unforeseen events or conditions. Moreover, opportunities are realized to improve project performance and outcomes while also ensuring the cost and schedule reserves are utilized effectively to maintain alignment with project objectives. So as you can see, the principles, when executed upon, can produce significant value for our clients and for the organization. I know that was a lot, but it's important. So let's shift now to the term agile. The term agile has taken much of the conversation in project management. In the next few slides, we're going to look at the origins of agile and its founding principles so you can understand its influence better. Agile has influenced the evolution of project management in recent decades. It began with the agile mindset, which is informed by 4 values and 12 principles. And there are more than 50 known forms of agile practice being used globally. In 2001, a group of software developers released an Agile Manifesto, which formed the basis for several methodologies. The original Agile Manifesto is composed of, again, 4 foundational values, which were mainly applied to software development. This is the manifesto here. So looking at it here through the work, and I'm just going to read from the screen because it's very clear here. We are uncovering better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others to do it. Through this work, we have come to value individuals and interaction over process and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change over following a plan. That is, while there is value in the items on the right, we value the items on the left more. So we're not throwing out what we valued in the past, but we value more those things that are on the left. And I can, from my start in the predictive or waterfall methodologies, when I first started out, I can tell you this was refreshing to hear this, because often we got hung up on comprehensive documentation, right? That documentation had to be right, or it needed to be done, versus focusing, putting our efforts on that working software, right? And documentation certainly is of value, and it needs to be done. But we need to make sure that we're focused more on the working software versus the documentation. Okay. Over the years, a few changes have been made to the original wording, and the principles have been adapted for use outside of software development to any project effort. The manifesto was expanded to include 12 principles. We'll cover the first 6 here and the remainder on the next slide. So number 1, our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous development of valuable software, right? We want to produce that early and continuous delivery. Second, we embrace changing requirements for competitive advantage. Okay. Third, we want to deliver frequently. Fourth, we want to foster collaborative work between team members and the business or the customer representatives. Fifth, team members are motivated and empowered to make decisions with the needed support. Sixth, effective conversations are done face-to-face and enhanced at a whiteboard. So that's a summary of those 6. Seventh, progress is measured by results. Eighth, a consistent pace of work is determined by the team. Okay, so the team is going to determine the pace of work. Ninth, stability and support is achieved through quality results. 10th, a lean concept. Anything that does not provide value needs to be eliminated. 11th, self-organizing teams and collaboration will produce the best results. And lastly, Principle 12, a focus on the continuous improvement of process with adjustments made going forward. Okay, so those are the 12 principles behind the Agile Manifesto. Okay, should be familiar with them. Again, you don't have to memorize them. So Agile is considered, quote unquote, the far side of the range of adaptive approaches. In between Agile and predictive is a wide range of tailored hybrid development approaches which combine aspects of predictive and adaptive elements. Project practitioners can think about the difference between doing Agile, that is, engaging in the fast development cycles with high levels of experimentation, and a fail-fast approach versus being Agile, which means adopting the Agile mindset and being an advocate for adoption of the mindset in your organization. 4 characteristics that make up the Agile mindset are: first, the adoption of a flexible, change-friendly way of thinking and behaving. Second, understanding the purpose of these practices. Third, selecting and implementing appropriate practices based on context. And fourth, internalizing Agile values, mindset, and behavior. Because the way of projects and project management have evolved, it's important to emphasize that no 2 projects are the same. Remember, they're unique. And therefore, it is even more important to understand concepts and apply them when appropriate to individual project efforts. We refer to this action as tailoring. It applies to tools, techniques, process, ways of doing things, any aspect of project management. Tailoring is the deliberate adaptation of the project management approach, governance, and processes to make them more suitable for the given environment and the work at hand. As such, it occurs continuously throughout a project. Okay. In a project environment, tailoring considers the development approach, processes, project life cycle, deliverables, and choice of people with whom to engage. The needs of the delivery approach, product, and organizational environment will determine which methods are the most applicable for a specific project. This represents the evolution of project management into hybrid approaches, processes, practices, and methods. All right. So now that we've completed this topic, you should be refreshed on the foundational project management concepts and principles, including the definition of what a project is and how it relates to the larger discussion of project management. This also includes knowing the different types of organizational structures and how they relate to the management of a project. You should also understand the principles of Agile as well as how they relate to the management of a project, particularly tailoring management of a project to the objectives of the project. What additional questions do you have? All right. Well, it's a few minutes after the hour. I think it's a good idea for us to take about a 10-minute break. During this time, I would like to ask you to make sure you get up and you move about, you stretch, do some deep bends, or maybe even some jumping jacks, something that gets your blood circulating again, and get that blood moving around and back up to your brain and out to your body. We know that movement, has been proven to help us learn better. So please don't continue to stay seated, reviewing emails and such. Also, take a moment to jot down, three things that you want to make sure you'll remember. And then I might ask a few of you to share, what your 3 key takeaways were So we'll be back in 10 minutes. So let's plan on coming back at 14 after the hour, okay? All right. Thanks, everybody. All right, it's 14 minutes after. Let's go ahead and continue on. We're on the home stretch here. So I hope y'all all took an opportunity to move around during the break. So why don't we find out a few things that you learned or relearned. So let me go back to my list, folks.
Power on. Bluetooth pairing.
So
Bluetooth
would anybody like to volunteer and tell me a couple of things that they learned or relearned or something that really stuck out to them?
Bluetooth disconnected.
I guess with the organizational structure, like how each individual one is so different, and you have to be careful on identifying what each one does. So that kind of stuck out to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you, Melvin.
Power off. Power on.
Anybody else like to come off mute and anything that you relearned, for example? Did you know what a project was? Were you able to define it if somebody asked you?
For me, it was interesting to see the organizational project management structure and how you broke down the external and internal environment and compared it to AT&T. And so, just looking at that chart, you wouldn't look at, the logistics of the external all the way down to the meat and potatoes of, the levels that we are within the company. So that was an interesting perspective how you broke it down, and I would have never thought of that the way that you explained it. So yeah, that was great.
Oh, well, good, Sherry. Great. I'm glad you enjoyed that. Got something from that. Yeah, it's very important as project managers. We do have to look at that external environment, right? What's going on out there, as well as the internal environment, and all that's going to have some influence on how we execute our projects. Yeah.
I think the
Anyone else?
driving home
Yeah,
that a project is time limited. With a lot of our client sponsors, at least in my world, they don't understand that it should have an end date. So driving that
Indeed,
home is
right.
gonna really emphasize it with them when I work with them. Like, no, we have to stop. We're done.
That's
Are,
Project
are
is
you
done.
right.
are you referring to G.Fast Gen 2?
I knew you were going to bring that up, Alan, as soon as I said something.
Oh, goodness
That's
gracious.
not the one I was thinking of, but now I am.
When I first started in my role, that was the first project they put me on. They're like, "Oh, you're going to be part of this G.Fast Gen 2." I'm like, "Oh yeah, cool." It's been 86 years. No, it's been 4 years, and there's still weekly discussions about that project. So yeah, sometimes the organization doesn't realize that a project just needs to end.
It does. Yep. And if we're as project managers, we need to bring that's sort discipline, right? That's the word I was looking for. We, as project managers, we've got to bring discipline to this, and part of learning a common vocabulary and common practices in project management will help us to do that, right? So great. I'm glad we've reinforced some of these concepts. And again, good idea just to go back over them again and just make sure you really have them down pat. Again, I think this will probably be the easiest part for you, for most of you for the exam. But and even though it's only 8% of the exam, you certainly don't want to lose any of these easier questions, right, on the exam. So. Great. Well, thank y'all. Thank y'all so much for contributing to the conversation on that. We'll go ahead and get started with our next topic, which is strategic alignment. So professionals at all levels need to be able to cultivate effective decision-making skills and understand how their projects align with the big picture of broader organizational strategy and global trends. And because today's projects demand a broad set of skills and capabilities, PMI will continue to focus on giving you the tools and insights you need to develop new skills and tackle your next big project challenge. So after we review this topic, you should be able to discuss strategic alignment and its elements. You'll be able to explain the impact of business factors on strategic alignment, and you'll be able to determine how projects align with business strategy. So the PMI talent triangle is a practical representation of critical professional skills, and it has also become an important and well-recognized icon for the PMI brand, encompassing key elements of our core value proposition. So let's discuss what the three sides of the triangle mean. To help project professionals navigate the changing world of work and embrace smarter ways of working, the updated basis of the PMI talent triangle now focus on ways of working, power skills, and business acumen. So ways of working, which was formerly labeled technical project management. Ways of working aligns to the process domain of the exam content outline, or the ECO, which covers a mastery of diverse and creative ways to get any job done. Power skills had been previously labeled leadership. This area aligns to the people domain of the ECO, those critical interpersonal skills required to apply influence, inspire change, and build the relationships. And third, business acumen. Previously, it was labeled strategic and business management, and it aligns now to the business environment domain of the ECO. This area of the talent triangle focuses on effective decision-making and understanding how projects align with the big picture of broader organizational strategy and global trends. Although business acumen, again, is the smallest part of the PMP certification exam, with only, again, 8% of questions coming from this area, it is arguably the most crucial to understand for project professionals, because it really is the underpinning or the foundation of everything, right? Project professionals must understand the business of an organization and thus make good judgments and quick decisions while understanding the many factors that influence across an organization or an industry. Okay. So let me see if my little dictionary tool still isn't doing it. I don't know what's going on. So a strategic plan is a high-level business document that explains an organization's vision and mission, plus the approach that will be adopted to achieve the mission and vision, including the specific goals and objectives to be achieved during the period covered by the document. From a portfolio program slash project perspective, strategic alignment has to do with knowing how a portfolio's programs and projects lines up with the interests of the business, both internally and externally. Strategic and business management skills, also referred to as domain knowledge, involve the ability to see the high-level view of the organization, industry, and products. And it requires a working knowledge of business functions as well as key products and preferably previous experience in the industry. Regardless of past work, the project manager must be able to understand and explain the essential aspects of the project as they relate to business strategy. The project manager works with business stakeholders, subject matter experts, or what we call SMEs, and the sponsor to work toward understanding the capabilities and capacity of the organization to incorporate the results delivered by the project and to develop the appropriate delivery strategy to support realization of the benefits. Project managers must be able to determine the strategy for both the development and delivery of the project results to maximize the business value of the result. We'll talk about the elements that make up strategic management on the next slide. But before we go there, I'm going to go back now and ask you again, can you articulate AT&T's vision and mission or their purpose? Do you know now where to find that information on the Insider? Well, I've taken us there, right? So let's go back there again. Okay. So what is AT&T's vision and mission? Can you tell from looking at this?
Isn't it those items on the right-hand side?
Well, on the right-hand side, I would say probably those are more objectives, right? It's kind of the how are we going to go about doing it. It gets more down into the details, right?
So it's
What
connecting
about
people it's connecting people to the greater possibilities. That's the mission of the company, and the strategy to do it is to be by being the best connectivity provider through 5G and fiber. And this is the culture we follow to do that, to what we're trying to achieve. Am I close?
Yeah, I think you've got a good interpretation of it overall, and I've studied it too because I know vision, mission, some of that can kind of get combined sometimes. So when we think about vision, and we're going to go to the next slide here and probably repeat what I'm just now saying is, so when we think vision, we think aspirational, right? Something that we're not there yet, right? We're going to get there. And so I tend to think, even though it says strategy, it kind of overlaps as vision because we're not the best connectivity provider just yet, are we? Maybe on some days, but not always. But we want to be there always, right? And then from a mission standpoint, or you think kind of purpose, mission and purpose are pretty synonymous, right? We want to connect people to greater possibility, right, with expertise, simplicity, and inspiration. That's our mission is to do that on a day-to-day basis. And then how do we actually do that now starts to begin to define what you see on the right over here, right? We want to make sure that we're serving customers first, we're acting boldly, we're moving faster, and we're winning as one. So extending from there now, we kind of come over to the right and we start building out more specific priorities or objectives, right? Achieving results aligned, to our purpose, strategy, and culture that just kind of is repetitive, right? Building those durable relationships with the customers, employees, and share owners. Driving sustainable growth. It talks about quality, right? Making sure that what we're doing, the projects that we engage in actually, drive, are sustainable, something that we're going to continue to move forward and be able to keep the results that we're getting. And then, of course, strengthening our balance sheet. So there's a lot to think of here, and I think, as project managers, we need to keep coming back to this, right? Looking back at this particular page, because if our projects aren't aligning here, then we don't have strategic alignment, right? The projects, programs, portfolios, all should be aligning back to what you see on this page. And if your projects are not, we need to start asking those questions, right? So let's look at the next page here. That kind of gets into more of those details, right? So again, vision sits up at the top of the triangle. It tells us and the world where the business wants to go or what it wants to be known for, right? It's an aspirational statement. We're not there yet, but that's where we want to be. AT&T wants to be the best connectivity provider, right? Then there's the mission, right? A pre-established objective or purpose. AT&T's purpose is to deliver 5G and fiber technologies that connect people to greater possibility, right? And then the organization down the triangle then begins to define those areas that they're going to pursue. This is outlined in the organization's strategy and objectives, right? through our, we're going to do it through our culture, right? We've got a culture that's going to be focused on, serving our customers first. Our projects are going to be about serving customers first, right? Acting boldly, right? Making some significant steps using technologies that maybe haven't been used before, thinking a different way, moving faster, and of course, working as a team. Winning is one. We're not going to cut off, our nose to spite our face, to make sure that our one pet project or pet portfolio over here succeeds at the expense of other things that are important to AT&T. Okay. And then goals. Goals involve, identifying the milestones that are going to be reached and the resources that are going to be involved. We just talked and looked at some of the goals that were sitting on the right side of the page, or what we call our priorities. And then you've got the portfolios, the programs and the projects that get spun up, to start making progress toward achieving the organization's objectives and goals. And then, of course, at the bottom here of the triangle, in support of all of this, the organization relies on operational procedures, or sometimes what it's called standard operating procedures, or SOPs, and also our organizational structures, HR and so forth, right? So this is the triangle and how strategic alignment is visualized, right? A model of it. So in summary, the vision, mission, objectives, and the goals are met by identifying specific strategies that can be implemented by the combined portfolio of the programs and projects, as well as the ongoing operations. In addition, operational procedures, otherwise known as OPAs, are established to carry out the strategic elements. Organizational resources support and work toward establishing the most appropriate organizational structure to achieve these strategies. Regarding Agile projects, keep in mind that some Agile projects use a goal-setting framework such as objectives and key results, or OKRs, that describe the organization's objectives and desired key results. You're going to hear the term OKR again in a future lesson. I know, because I will be mentioning OKR in some of the topics that I cover with you. Okay. As we learned in Topic A, projects operate in environments that may influence them favorably or unfavorably. Two major categories that may influence the way a project is performed and need to be considered as a project is started are the areas referred to as EEFs and OPAs. EEFs are enterprise environmental factors, and OPAs are organizational process assets. And they're a standard part of every project. And you need to understand the part they play in the strategic alignment of the project. I'm going to click on the box to see if this will move here. Let's see if that one does. Okay. So EEFs are conditions outside the immediate control of the team and that influence, constrain, or direct the project, program, or portfolio. Can you think of any EEFs at AT&T or any EEFs outside of AT&T?
Government policies. Those are enterprise environmental factors.
Enterprise, exactly. Yep.
Like the election.
Say that again.
The election, like political.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. You have some. The political. Yeah. Most assuredly. I mean, if a new administration comes in, they can change, regulations and policies and things of that nature. I know I was in data privacy for a period of time, and I mean, it was a very volatile, still is a very volatile regulatory area, right? You have a new rule or regulation or law that goes into effect, and it may cause a real problem, for your project, if it relies on data, right? The use of data. Yeah. Very good. Right. And then internal OPAs. Let's talk about OPAs. So OPAs, or again, organizational process assets. This refers to all the implicit input or assets or processes used by an organization in operating the business. This can include, but it's not limited to, business plans, processes, policies, protocols, and knowledge. Yeah. So we know that there are a number of OPAs that we're required to consider in many of our projects, right? And they're not always the same, even if it's the same type of project, right? Okay. All right. Very good. So, as a project manager, we need to consider external and internal EEFs as they represent constraints and forces that will certainly exert pressure on the project. And, of course, for the OPAs, as a project manager, not only the project manager but the project team, we need to be familiar with how the organization works, right, so that we can get that work done and do it well and effectively. So in the next few slides, we're going to cover these influences in a little bit more detail. Okay. So aside from being an active listener and engaged in the normal course of work, there are a few ways to help understand the business environment better using frameworks or prompts. Okay, these can be used to guide the understanding of external factors that may impact the project. Brainstorming or discussion with the team can also help elicit scenarios. These are often used as categories when identifying project risks. Common prompts or frameworks include PESTLE, TCOP, or VUCA. These acronyms stand for the various risk categories that the project manager needs to consider. For example, PESTLE includes the categories of political, economic, social, technical, legal, and environmental. So this makes it a little easier for the project manager to do some risk analysis, right? So I want to think about, the political concerns. We mentioned that earlier, right? What's going on in the economy? Are there things that are changing there that might impact my project? What's going on, in culture? How are points of view, being promoted and changing that might impact the project that I'm working on? Of course, technical, legal, and environmental. There are other ways to understand the external business environment better. These include using comparative advantage analysis, feasibility studies, SWOT. I mean, many of you probably are very familiar with SWOT. Looking at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, right? Assumption analysis. Looking at historical information, right, as an indicator as to what we could expect with a particular project. And then, of course, aligning risk with our organizational strategy. So risk will be covered in more detail in a later session, as will some of the ways for assessing risk. Okay. So lastly, a little bit more about OPA. No, that's not that page. Wait, I'm sorry, one moment. Oh, I'm sorry. Internal business environment factors. So when taking on a new project, the project manager needs to consider the organization's strategic vision. Additionally, the project manager needs to consider any major changes in structure or plans. Why? Because organizational changes can make a dramatic impact on the scope of a project. I think most of us, if not all of us, can attest to this at AT&T. We're continually, doing org changes. It's been that way for 24 years that I've been with the company, and invariably can and does have impacts on our projects. The project manager needs to have visibility into business plans, reorganizations, process changes, and other internal activities. And these are the internal environmental factors, or EEFs, that we spoke of. Internal business changes might require your project to respond with changes before or during the project effort. Kind of goes without saying. And then lastly, OPAs and EEFs, a little bit more detail here. OPAs have two categories, mainly processes, policies, and procedures, and then organizational databases. So for examples of OPAs are listed here, including but not limited to organizational charts, procurement rules, and hiring and onboarding procedures. Organizational knowledge bases may include engineering wikis, libraries and archives, and lessons learned repositories. EEFs can be both internal and external. Internal examples of EEFs include but are not limited to our resource capabilities, organizational culture, right? And we're certainly working to evolve our culture here at AT&T. IT software, and also the distribution facilities, right? How the OPAs and EEFs perhaps, well, let me ask you this. How have OPAs and EEFs perhaps influenced or is influencing some of AT&T's projects today? There's a big buzzword going on right now that might prompt you to blurt it out, but it has 2 letters in it. It starts with A. Artificial intelligence. AI is certainly something that's having an influence on projects, is it not?
Oh, yeah.
What other?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
Are
would
there
think
any other
also like with
initiatives?
the resource, I think like with the resource capabilities, as far as the financial aspect of AT&T, that we don't have as much money as we used to, so it kind of limits some of the projects
Mm-hmm.
that we do take on.
Exactly. We've got some constraints, right? I've got a project up in trying to get funding for now for 3. This is the 3rd year now, and we still don't have it, And the downside of that is, at some point, what if I go on and do something else, or other resources go away that know stuff about that project? I mean, it has its downfalls, right? But it's part of the evolving nature of our business, and the economies. I also think about green initiatives, right? We've seen that how that's had impact on our processes. I mean, our projects and some of our processes. Diversity and inclusion initiatives, and other hiring processes as well, right? There's a lot going on in the environment that we have to think about, especially with big projects, that are going to last for quite a while, take time to get done. As project managers, the real value that, or a big part of the value that we bring is being able to look all around us and understand all the different things that can exert pressure on the success of the project. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so to finish up this portion of the session, here's a list of EEFs and OPAs. Take a moment to look over them, and let's see if we can categorize them as either EEF or OPA. I think it'll be pretty straightforward. So just take a moment to read through them, and then we'll go ahead and categorize them. All right. So economic demand for a new shopping area, EEF or OPA?
Is it OPA?
E-
Yeah.
No, I thought it was EEF.
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 EEF. I think that's the consensus. All right. Historical society building regulations.
OPA.
EEF.
OPA.
OPA.
Oh,
EEF.
why an OP?
EEF.
Yeah, EEF. Yeah,
EEF.
yeah. Yes. Environmental. Think environmental, right? We got some regulations out there. Okay, regulatory environment. Very good. Okay. Local neighborhood demand for a better town center.
EEF.
EEF.
Yeah.
EEF.
Yeah. Again, our environment out there, external environment, right? Okay. Archive of past large infrastructure projects.
OPA.
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 Yeah, absolutely. We can look back at those projects and see if there's similarities, things we need to be aware of, right? Approved vendor and contractors list.
OPA.
OPA.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the last, tenant selection process.
OPA.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. An OPA is a process that's internal. We need to come, abide by that. It is an OPA, an organizational process asset. Very good, very good. All right, thank you. So in this topic, we effectively reviewed the importance of aligning our projects with the organization's vision, mission, and strategy. Moreover, project management professionals need to understand clearly how the internal and external environment can affect their projects. Are there any additional questions about what was covered in this topic on strategic alignment? Any questions you have? All right. Well, hey, it's been a pleasure presenting the content to you in this session. I encourage you to take some time immediately after we close out the session to review the material again. Just scan back over it. I know we've got 15 more minutes or so to close out the hour, but this would be a great time for you just to take a few minutes just to glance back through it. Then between now and Wednesday, cross-reference any areas that you had any questions about in the PMBOK and the study guides that we discussed in the orientation session. In the next session, you're going to cover the last 4 of the 6 topics in this lesson on business environment. So you can also take some time to glance over that material. Again, I've provided that to you on the TWiki. If you have any questions about accessing that, you didn't hear at the beginning of the session, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'll be glad to answer. And of course, any questions you have at all, I'm here for you to support you. And I know you'll have a good time with Harry Dosher in our next session. He's he's my predecessor as the director of the Education Committee. He's very seasoned. I think you're really going to enjoy his presentation and Ben Desir, but you'll have him a lot over the next several courses several classes. So Harry's great, and I'm looking forward to y'all being exposed to him.
I have a question. I'm sorry. I have a question. So I have PMBOK 6th edition and 7th edition both. So what should I start with, 6th or 7th?
I would say you can start with either, but frankly, I would think you probably ought to start with the 6th.
Why 6th? I mean, I don't know the difference between the two.
I'm sorry, say that again?
What's the difference between 6th and 7th? You said
The
start
6th,
right?
Yeah, so the 6th edition it's going to describe all the processes, the business processes, or the process groups, right? Project process groups, scope management. You're going to get some of that out of the 7th edition, but it's going to be broader and not as detailed. So the 6th and 7th editions are not the same. They will have some similarities, but they will not be the same. And the exam is predicated on a good understanding of what's in the 6th edition.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. And again, if you didn't catch it on the orientation, if you become a PMI member, I think it's $145 for the year, if I remember correctly. If you become a PMI member, you get the 7th edition along with that membership. You will not have to pay extra for it. It's a downloadable version. Okay, but not the 6th anymore. They don't have that as a download for you with your membership.
Yeah,
You also get the Agile with the membership too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's at least 3 resources there that are very useful for you that come with the membership. And if you want to wait just a little bit on the membership, it's up to you if you want to. But as Trish Rosita, you may have heard her mention on the orientation, we're working on getting the promo code that would give you a discount on. It's a 10% discount. It's $14.50 on $145. But if you want to wait until next week to get the PMBOK, get your PMI membership, I'll see if I can hurry up and get that promo code for you. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank y'all so much. Y'all been great, and we look forward to seeing you on Wednesday evening. Okay.
Thanks, Cindy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Y'all have a great week. You're welcome. Bye-bye.